Jalen Hurts' comments after the Monday Night Football loss, talking about some of the players on the Eagles are not committed enough. That was his implication, and then he used the word committed multiple times, was asked, what does that mean? He's like, I don't have a dictionary here. What's your interpretation of his post-game comment?
I think being somebody like him who's always so eloquent after, he's one of those guys, I know for us when we've had him a couple times post-game, just what a great talker and communicator he is. In that moment, I think you've lost 3 in a row. You're really frustrated. He obviously played sick. You could tell by the way he was kind of carrying himself in that interview. He was hurting after just the adrenaline of playing through that game. I think it was more of an emotional thing than like something that really there's a lot to. I think he's just frustrated. And I think probably you could kind of tell after he said it, he tried to kind of back out of it at one point, of really explaining exactly what he meant. So I think it was more around emotion, but the frustration I think is when you're the quarterback and you're, the Philadelphia Eagles and what was expected of them this season, it all feels like it falls on you all the time. And so I think maybe there's just one of those moments where he's exhausted and he's thinking of how in the world do we get through this, and the emotion of committed. I don't even know if he really knew how he could explain it. I think it was more of really the mode of what he felt in that moment, not necessarily something that says he feels like this team's not committed.
Because you are as well aware of the narrative as anybody else, being as plugged in as you are to talking about stuff every single week. It's been the Eagles, 10 wins, something's been off in almost every one of them. We haven't seen the dominant NFC champion team from last year that was boat racing people or taking care of business, extending leads in a way that they didn't last night. Mistakes defensively, they're not taking the football away nearly as much as they need to. So there's been something off. So for him to come out and say the word committed means that's been the issue all year long.
Yeah.
And something's up. And Philadelphia is now going to go on sports media, a mole hunt for which player is he referring to or group of players is he referring to. You're saying that's not what
I think they're definitely going to do that. I think that he was more probably talking from a place of emotion and being exhausted than something that he really felt a particular area. But I think the biggest concerns for that football team are exactly what you just said. Not that they've not been as good, not that they keep kind of having these games, but that it's kind of the same things that keep coming up. And I think to me, when you look over a season, if a team repeats the same mistakes over and over again, you can bet it's usually how their season ends. We're going to come down to a narrative of either the secondary and how they've struggled or offensively just not being able to score when they need to score in these games. It's going to be the reason that their season's going to end without their, the thing they want most in that championship.
So do you believe the guy? So if you're saying Hurts was just speaking from an emotional point of view, and although this is uncharacteristic of him, saying things that he knows are going to rile up a media that is eager to find out what's wrong with this team, or a fan base that wants to hear what's wrong with this team because they've been wondering that question for 3 months. So you do believe the guys are in that locker room that can fix this?
I think they are, just because it's not much different than last year. You still got a lot of guys that have played in this game for a long time, and sometimes teams need hey, let's all sit and refocus and say, hey, what are the little things that we need to be better at? And how can we all be better together? And I think the thing that, people probably didn't give enough attention to is that you replaced both coordinators coming into this season. So there was going to be growing pains. And for whatever reason, they just haven't seemed to feel like at any point in the season you feel like, oh, man, we found this perfect marriage in the coordinators. And then last week, even the whole secrecy of changing the coordinator defensively and really how that was handled, I think that very interesting for that not to be something we didn't find out until close to the game. That, Patricia all of a sudden is now calling the defense. I think those kind of things, to me, they definitely send out a signal of, all right, I don't think everything's going that well right now inside the building, regardless of the football field, because communication seems to be lacking. And you could say Jalen Hurts is emotional in those moments, but, also I think he comes from Nick Saban. He comes from programs that have won where sometimes you're sending a little message, right? And so I don't know that it was like, hey, I think people aren't committed, as much as a little message of, man, I need everyone to be committed to this thing because I feel like I just played sick. I just played exhausted. I'm tired. Gave it all I had. It wasn't good, but we've got to commit if we want to get to where we want to go.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.